A young man named Russ successfully fills another bottle with distilled water, making it his 1,000th for the day. With this, the quota has been reached. Seeing that he's finished before noon, he's pleased with himself. Distilled water is an indispensable ingredient, used to make various potions and transmute magic creatures. His water is special as he mixes magic energy in uniform, making each drop of it of very high quality. As he's deciding to spend the afternoon on research, a voice urgently calls out to him. Acknowledging the man named Rihaltsem, he asks to know the purpose of the visit. With a detesting look, the alchemist of the arms alchemy department barely stops himself from picking a fight, instead informing Russ that he's being called by the president. That man starts an argument at every chance he gets. As a proud member of the arms department, which makes a lot of money, he always complains about the young man's basic research department, which to his belief isn't worth the budget. Carrying the bottles of distilled water out, the snarky man states that an errand boy should simply do their tasks in silence. Following the summons, he makes his way to the president's office, where he's greeted with an unpleasant surprise. His eyes widen in shock as the president announces that the basic research department's budget has been cut all the way down to zero. Since they just assist other departments and show no actual results, it's only natural to distribute the budget to the ones that bring in money. The young researcher tries to argue, but he isn't even given a chance. At that point, the department's disbandment had been finalized, and its members will be doing routine work for other researchers moving forward. Frustrated, the man insists that he should be grateful for still having a job there at all. Spewing out the smoke from his pipe, he tells the young man to leave and get back to work. Thinking about it, even the pipe he's using wouldn't have been made without the basic research department. Since there's no point in arguing, he stomps out of the room. The technique to take in magic elements from the atmosphere was a joint project by his team and the technical department. The heat conversion system, solutions, and circuit board were all provided by his department. The idea that they don't produce results is just bias from higher-ups that is disconnected from the real work. Slumping down on his desk, he thinks about how the budget and personnel have continued to shrink ever since that man became president. But somehow he still did his job, and he can proudly say that none of the products they've developed recently would have succeeded without his department. All of them need ingredients of the highest quality, and he's the one who's been preparing them. That being said, there's no point in talking to their president anymore if the department itself has been disbanded. Just then, he received a message, and the telecommunications device began moving. The tool is a marvel of modern alchemy, and the basic materials were also provided by his department. Looking at the message takes him back. It's from a woman named Kaylin, who he hasn't seen since they graduated from the academy. They got along surprisingly well, and he can still remember the ridiculous ideas she dragged him into, including turning the classroom into a jungle. Always up to no good, they often composed written apologies together. The pair went their separate ways, but he heard that she did very well in the previous war. Now reading the letter, she says he might think her rude for suddenly contacting him, but she gets straight to the point. She's received a dominion in the borderland and is asking for his help to develop it. With this, he now has two paths ahead of him. One is to be stuck in the association and spend the rest of his life doing nothing but chores. The other is an offer filled with nothing but an unwritten future. Remembering his old friend's face, he readily decides to quit and have fun with Kaylin instead. Packing his bags, the young alchemist thinks about his emotional attachment to the place, having been there even before the current president took over. The previous head, Master Howlhammer, was a self-made man who understood the importance of the basic research department and regarded them as the very cornerstone of the association. They developed many products together, but a change in government led to his demotion and his replacement by a former government official. He reaches the main office's door and overhears a conversation. The people inside are talking about how wise and easy of a decision it was to cut the basic research department's budget completely and hand the entire funding to the arms alchemy department instead. It's apparent that they aren't even trying to muffle the conversation. Annoyed, he knocks on the door and enters before getting permission. Inside are the president and Rihaltsam. Insulted by the young man's unwelcome appearance, the head scolds him for entering on his own accord. As tensions are rising, Russ calmly announces his resignation and turns to leave. Shocked, the two cry out, arguing that he can't just quit all of a sudden. Looking back, he states that he can, and shows them his labor contract, which concerns his job in the basic research department. He was supposed to train a replacement before leaving, but thanks to them, the department just happened to be dissolved. With this, he can quit right away. When the concern of the chores and distilled water production is brought up, he simply tells them to make it themselves. As an alchemist, it shouldn't be a problem for their level of skill anyway. While the member of the arms department is irritated, the president sighs in relief, thinking that they have one less nuisance to worry about. After all, Rehalsem always said that they don't need people like him. He was going to let him stay and do chores, but his ungrateful attitude is unneeded in the association. As he's being ordered to leave, the boisterous alchemist is observably nervous. On the other hand, the young man declines their supposed kindness and exits right away. While walking through the hall, he comes across a large painting, showing a majestic creature bowing in respect to a cloaked figure. That will most likely be the last time he'll ever see the painting. Considering this, he thanks it for everything, and finally exits the building. Outside, he takes in a large breath of fresh air, delightfully feeling freedom for the first time in a long while. With his lease cancelled and all his belongings with him, he's able to head to Kalen's dominion right away. Flashily taking out a scroll, the alchemist spreads it out and activates a spell. After reaching his hand out and manifesting certain components, he summons the riding beast Hippo, a cute, hippo-looking creature, perfect for long-distance travel. Mounting the large animal, they hopefully set off on their journey and headed into the borderlands. The dominion he's headed to is in the far north of the country. After deciding to quit, he contacted his friend and informed her of his decision. As expected, she made a big deal of taking him in. That being said, he doesn't know what a regular alchemist like him can do to help. While hastily moving towards his destination, he takes a look around, not having been outside in quite a while. Back then, gathering materials in the forest was the norm. It's nice to be able to smell the sprouting flowers and feel the cold wind again. Now filled with bliss, he realizes that he has been carrying a lot of stress for all those years. Now that he's left the association, there's a lot of free time, and he can even stop to gather some ingredients like before. As he's thinking of going near the lake, the hippo's marks glow and its ears flap around, clear signs that something is wrong. Judging by the signals, it's likely that there's an injured person nearby. Taking note to proceed with caution, he rides into the forest and sees someone up ahead. The young man urgently jumps down to help and tells his companion to stay alert. Landing on the grass, he takes a look around. If they were on the side of the road, they could be a bandit pretending to be injured, but it's unlikely since almost no one goes there. Feeling safe, he takes a closer look and identifies the person on the ground as a night priest, a rare sight. Judging by her uniform, she's most probably a follower of the goddess of vengeance. Rust sees her red and struggling expression and realizes that she must have a fever. Moreover, she's unconscious. Now that he thinks about it, there are medicinal herbs nearby that probably work on fevers. Since she made her way there, he wonders if she knew it too. First off, the respiratory tract must be secured and her overall condition should be checked. Excusing himself, he turns her over. To his surprise, he sees marks on her cheeks and forehead, patterns usually indicating a curse. As he looks on, her state gradually worsens. Rust activates the magical scroll from before and initiates a transcription process over the fallen night priest. The item hovers over her body and soon completes scanning her condition. He tells it to display its findings, and the parchment is suddenly filled with different formulae and texts. With this, he's certain that someone has put a curse on her. It's not a dire emergency, and it's recommended that she be brought to a specialist in her location. However, the suffering on her face is quite apparent. Studying the findings closer, he sees that the fever is caused by poison. The wound on her side was probably how it entered the body. Moreover, it's a special type of poison, likely dealt by a familiar. He doesn't have the right potion to deal with it right now, but seeing as he's in a vast forest filled with resources, the alchemist decides to make a new one instead. After asking Hippo to watch over the patient, he rushes around to look for something he can use. Just a few minutes into the search, he's already panting in exhaustion. Still with a bright expression, he says that the years of not exercising have begun to show their ugly heads. Fortunately, he expected something like this to happen, so he was able to prepare some stamina potions, which instantly relieved his fatigue upon consumption. Arriving at the nearby lake, he sees that there are still some medicinal herbs left. That being said, the area that they grow in seems to have narrowed down a bit. He wonders if someone has been picking them periodically, but remembers that he's in a rush at the moment. There are herbs to recover stamina, aid in wound regeneration, and expel poison. By themselves, they don't really do much, and even after normal transformation, the potency of their potions won't improve by a lot. Considering this, even if the night priest did reach that place, she probably wouldn't have been able to save herself, but that isn't the case for him. Judging by her condition, a simple transmutation from him should do the trick. He also has an entire lake to work with. Using a transmutation process that focuses on speed, the talented young alchemist gets to work, elegantly activating multiple scrolls and formulae simultaneously. With ease, he releases the constraints of gravity and indicates 5 targets. With the ball of water floating before him, he begins purification. This purification is the same one he used to make distilled water. He skillfully crafted a scroll to aid production, as it would be too troublesome otherwise. That being said, he takes pride in it, as it's one of the best things that has come out of his basic research. Ultra-pure water is beyond normal pure water, but this takes things even further. It's perfectly pure water. The ball passes and is sifted through a magical plate, making it even cleaner. While it's nothing more than water, the production needs a bit more tricks in addition to activating a scroll. Fortunately, after making 1,000 bottles every day, it's something he can do while sleeping. He has to make adjustments to really bring out its purity, as high-purity liquids melt things very easily. So if he adds medicinal herbs to perfectly pure water, to keep the balance of the world, the water destroys and absorbs them. After purifying one last time, he's left with a highly concentrated potion. Nearing the end, he takes out a 3rd scroll and fixates the golden potion in the world. Lastly, he partially releases the constraints of gravity, and the liquid seamlessly flows into a small flask. It's a freshly made potion with 0 impurities. Satisfied, he decides to hurry back to the injured woman. Upon arriving, he sees Hippo urgently stomping on the ground. It looks around, seeming to be searching for something. From afar, he can see a small black figure, swiftly moving around. The large beast raises its front legs, and brings them down to trample on a single spot repeatedly. Its owner is frightened at the sight, wondering what the target was. He lets the attack pass, and runs over to ask what happened. Looking at the spot it gestured to, the alchemist sees a dark pool, possibly indicating that it was a familiar of some sort. It can't be a coincidence, and it's very likely that the thing was chasing the cursed woman. The threat is gone for now, so he works on treating the wound first. Excusing himself once more, he pours the perfectly pure water over her body. Although she's still unconscious, the droplets shine and work well, healing the gash on her side completely. Now healed, she begins to wake up little by little. Upon regaining consciousness, the Night Priest immediately gets into a battle stance, ready to jump into a fight. She asks where the enemy is, her hand still on her sword. He points to the traces of the familiar behind her. Facing ahead after taking a cautious look behind, she asks him to identify himself, almost introducing himself as someone from the association. Rust stops himself and says he's a traveling alchemist. It was brought by a habit, but he feels refreshed after remembering that he's unemployed now. Unable to ask him to explain further, the woman falls again. He apologizes for taking the liberty to heal her wound, but advises against moving too much, as the poison is still in her body. The alchemist hands her the rest of the potion. Instead of taking it right away, she thanks him for saving her first, then pleadingly asks how much the potion will cost her. Misunderstanding, she must think that began treating her, and is demanding compensation before finishing. While understanding that doing it for free looks suspicious, he assures her that he carries no ulterior motives, and simply thought that it'd be easier if she drank the potion fully conscious. With a bright smile, she apologizes sincerely, instead saying that it was wrong of her to suspect him. Looking at him, his intentions seem pure enough. That being said, the potion is obviously very expensive, so she can't take it for free. Understanding her sentiments, he comes up with an alternative and reintroduces himself as Rust, a traveling merchant heading to the borderland of the north. In payment, they can make a contract that says that she'll lend her services should a disaster happen to their land. With a wave of his hand, he politely asks to know the knight's name, as he'll be lending her a potion. Moved by the deal, she raises her sword and introduces herself as Tala, a knight of Aresla, goddess of vengeance, and the 3rd of the 3 swords. Accepting her debt, she vows on her sword that her blade will cut through any disaster that befalls him. Feeling like she took things a lot more seriously than intended, he hands over the bottle. Warmth spreads throughout her body upon drinking its contents, and energy rushes into her. Realizing that something has changed, she quickly draws her blade and places it in front of her. Looking at the glistening steel, she sees that her face is no longer tarnished by the marks of the curse. Tears begin to fall, and she trembles at the thought of her freedom. He looks away awkwardly, and she shares that she tried all kings of holy water, but none of them worked. Honestly speaking, lifting the curse was just a side effect of the potion. The liquid he used was perfectly pure, nothing more than water itself. In other words, it's like the original water, initially created by the gods. Imbued with a divine element, its effects are much greater than any holy water there is. That said, he doesn't want to tell her that her long-awaited recovery was nothing but a side effect. He has to hurry and get to Kalen's domain, as she's sure to have a lot of questions to ask. With this, he mounts Hippo and goes on his way, saying he has business to attend to. She tries to stop him, but they're running full speed ahead. Left alone, she looks at the bottle intently and wonders if the golden potion is the legendary elixir she's heard of. Without expecting it, she's become indebted to someone incredible. Delighted by the turn of events, the Night Priest is eager to put her skills to use and take on whatever disaster he faces. Remembering how the young alchemist is heading north, she turns to resume her own mission. The sooner she finishes her vengeance, the sooner she can follow up north. With that settled, the two go about their separate paths. In every field, the basics are the cornerstone. It's a big factor in the pursuit of results in the world. In the end, just how many people are able to understand this fundamental concept? Ending a long day of riding through the forest, Rust and Hippo stop to take a break, at a spot where they can see the beautiful stars shining. After saying goodbye to Tala, he kept heading north. Having a campfire at night and looking at the stars feels fresh. Ever since he joined the association, all his nights away from home were spent in the laboratory, transmuting till dawn. According to the map, they seem to be near the last village, right before the northern borderland. Just then, his companion nuzzles into him, trying to take a bite of his food. Actually, they're solidified potions, an original recipe consisting of cereals and fruits that were dry. Kalen used to call it a grass brick, but it doesn't taste that bad. Considering how close they'd gotten, they can hope to reach the village by tomorrow afternoon. The next day, they reach the village of Toma. Looking at it, the entire area looks like a barren settlement. Since it's basically his friend's neighboring town, he wonders how it's doing. Deciding to take a look since he's already there, the young man thanks Hippo and calls him back into the scroll. The companion's image shrinks and flickers, and eventually returns to its rolled-up piece of parchment. Just then, a man appears behind Rust and blankly asks to know who he is. Although he was surprised, he introduces himself, mentioning how he's a traveling alchemist. Upon hearing his occupation, the man interrupts his words and urgently asks him to come talk to the chief. Moving deeper into the village, they passed by broken signage, abandoned houses, and weeds spreading all throughout. It really does look run down, and as if entire families have left. A while later, they reach a well-kept house, basking in the sunshine. Seeing the Kajuro branches at the entrance, he wonders if there's a tree nearby, and if it's the cheat's house. The man knocks and calls out, announcing that he's brought an alchemist. An elderly gentleman comes out, leaning on a cane, and asks if he brought a real one. The villager admits that he didn't check, but says he looks like one. Handling the situation, Rust introduces himself properly and shows them his alchemist medallion. Bearing the symbol of scales, the medallion shines in the light. Taking a closer look, the old man's eyes widen in surprise, and he introduces himself as Chief Toma. The pendant serves as proof of his occupation, but it also indicates that he's of the highest rank. That's true, but he never gave it much thought, as almost everyone in the association has the same one, even Rihaltsam. The chief then apologizes if anyone in his village offended him at all, saying he has something to ask of him. He invites him inside to have some tea. The alchemist is sure that his request will be related to the state of the village. Moreover, judging by how he knew to address him as master, the man must be pretty knowledgeable. Inside, he expects the conversation to go pretty smoothly. A woman serves them tea. It's as normal as can be, but after eating rations for days, it's nice to have something warm for a change. Getting to business, they ask if he has any old-style magic crystals. Thinking about it, he says he might be able to help them out. That being said, why do they want such styles specifically? He reminds the young alchemist of the total revamp of magic guns, which took place during last year's war. He more or less does, remembering how Rihaltsam incessantly bragged about how it was his accomplishment. Apparently, others improved the technology, but the man from earlier complains that it was an improvement only in name, and that it became a total rip-off for customers. The chief calms the Zal, the villager, down but tells him to continue his explanation. In front of him there are two guns, one old and another of the new model. Such weapons are vital to people like them, who live in remote regions with no military knowledge. They're indispensable tools, essential to defending against monsters and beasts. However, all that changed a year ago. The old models were very fuel efficient and resilient, only needing to be replenished once in a while. They were considered to be the best friends of those in the remote regions. In front of him, they placed the H-32, developed a few years ago, and was very reliable in terms of resilience and precision. Taking it in his hand, he remembers the tool's history. The association began developing the gun just around the time he joined. His master, Halhammer, spearheaded the project back when he was head of the arms transmutation department. Its slogan at the time was "Peace of Mind for Soldiers until the very end." Some criticized it, saying the simple sturdiness and low fuel consumption were too mundane. But it seems like the ones who actually used the weapons held them in high regard. On the other hand, the R001 is completely different. They market it as something sophisticated, but Saul outright calls it worse than excrement. While his words are rough, they're also correct. The new models have improved power, but they break very easily and are prone to accidental misfires. Worst of all, it has terrible fuel efficiency, so they constantly have to replace its very expensive magic crystals. The change was unnecessary as the old models had enough power. The biggest problem is that they stopped producing old-style crystals when halting the production of the old guns. Despite saying that they still use the H-32, nobody makes the old crystals anymore, so they had no choice but to buy the useless new model, which costs too much to use and isn't even enough to defend themselves. Since there's a good chance of the magic crystal breaking, they only fire it when needed, and when they do, it'll likely misfire or break. With all things put together, beast and monster-related problems have increased, especially in remote villages. Those with families were exceptionally scared, so everyone moved away to safer places. Seeing that the young man understands their situation, they ask if they'll give them old crystals. Unfortunately, he has none. Their disappointment is apparent, as they don't even try to mask their sincere reaction. Following up, the alchemist says he can make them instead. Surprise, they thank him in absolute delight. Looking at them, he wonders if what he said was that surprising. Moving on, he opens up the topic of his reward. The mention of compensation worries the two, but they cautiously ask nonetheless. With bright eyes, he requests a reasonable amount of Kajiro materials. They're left speechless in an awkward silence, not understanding why he would want such a thing. A lot of the trees grow near the area, but they're essentially useless to the villagers. He's pleased to hear that there are a lot. There's an old custom about decorating the chief's door with Kajiro, but fewer villages and towns have been planting the trees recently. That said, old literature states that there's always been at least one in every village. With his, he asks them to take him to where they grow, adding that their fruits should be ready at this time of the year as well. They exit the house and move to their destination. Toma leads the way, but Rust is surprised to see that the villagers left behind have suddenly begun following behind. It can't be helped after all. They're in a small town with little to no sources of entertainment. There aren't even a lot of children there. They soon reach the Kajiro forest, filled with brilliant trees. He asks the two to gather some of the tree's materials, adding that it's fine to pick them off the ground. Since they're already there, the chief addresses the crowd that followed and instructs them to help gather branches and fruit. A while later, a neat pile of thin stalks and thorny fruit is placed in front of him. As they likely know, magic crystals are usually made of magic stones from monsters. However, that's not the only way to make them. Taking out 3 scrolls, he activates them all at once, and a surge of energy suddenly flows around him. The villagers clamor over the sight of the scrolls, with some saying that only master alchemists can make them using secret techniques. What's more impressive is how he's activating them simultaneously. Hearing that they seem to know a bit about alchemy, he thinks about being flashy and putting on a show. He wants to, but the repeating process has become rather mechanical to him. Moving forward, the scrolls enlarge around him and plates of elements and formulae float around, shining bright in the thick forest. A little while later, some of the energy accumulates in front of a scroll. The alchemist uses his proud creation on the magic elements in the atmosphere. Magic stones, taken from monsters, are elements from the air that solidified after a long time. So if he can filter them directly from the air, then there's no need to take them from monsters. In front of him are the valuable magic elements, and in very high concentration at that. The others look on in wonder, certainly unaware of what's actually happening. This makes sense, of course. The purification scroll was his creation, and he's the only one who uses it. Such is the crux of this unique transmutation. He takes one of the fruits and throws it at the spot where the energy is accumulating. Kajiro fruits are used quite frequently for a lot of transmutations. After all, they're exceptionally food at housing magic elements. Using another scroll, he polishes the fruit. Just then, the magic elements swirl around the single fruit and create a small but powerful vortex. The people are amazed, cheering at the sight of the tornado. Since the concept is easier to understand, the response is bigger this time. If he throws the Kajiro fruit with the magic elements into the tornado, then something amazing happens. One of the determining factors of magic crystals' quality is simply in how they're cut. Obviously, the polished scroll does more than just create a vortex. Its secret lies in the fine particles inside. With the ability to change the density of the diamond dust and the rotation speed, he has control over every minute adjustment. Having spent enough time, he decides that it's time to increase the density of the diamond dust. With a wave of his hand, the tornado gets bigger and shines more brilliantly. Seeing this, the women in the crowd are mesmerized, wondering what's happening. He finds it interesting that ladies, no matter where they are, completely enjoy shiny things. There are 3 norms when it comes to magic crystals: size, output, and capacity. In particular, size and output must match to work, and the output is determined by how they're cut. Fortunately, he can remember the norms of old-style magic crystals perfectly. Concentrating, he takes care not to make it too small. With all the adjustments done, he fixates and finalizes his creation. Between the power of the 3 scrolls, the magic elements are completely sealed in the Kajuro fruit, and the transmutation ends. Now in his palm is a shiny magic crystal, the result of his hard work. Satisfied with its quality, Rust clutches it in his hand and announces that he's finished. With his newly made magic crystal, Rust hands the old model firearm to the village chief and tells him he can try the crystal out. The chief locks it in the gun, and with anticipation from the village folks, he raises the gun to the sky to fire. He shoots, unleashing a powerful blast that puts a hole in the sky. The village people rejoice, for now they no longer need to fear the monsters again. Seeing the people happy, Rust continues with his magic work. He summons 3 of the levitating scrolls once again, impressing the onlookers with his alchemic prowess. After a few moments, the master alchemist had already made countless crystals that filled baskets. After catching his breath, the boy invites the people to take the baskets full of crystals. As he tells everyone that his crafted stones will last twice as long as the ones in the market, everyone is taken aback. The chief is so overwhelmed that he starts talking about how there are so many and how he does not know how they will be able to use them all. Seeing how he is acting, the old man collects his composure and tells the master alchemist in a calm manner that he has never been surprised in his life. He tells his assistant Zal to take the crystals to the village, to which he complies. Meanwhile, Rust sees many bags of the Kajuro materials he requested. While the people try to tie all the Kajuro materials with rope, he tells them that they do not need to do this. He summons another magical spell, summoning a tornado that pulls all the Kajuro materials into his backpack like a vacuum. The onlookers are left amazed again, seeing a magic technique of high caliber. Rust then tells the village chief that he has something to talk about. Knowing they need to talk more privately, the old man tells him that he will take him to his house. The master alchemist sees how perceptive the old man is. He instantly knows the importance of what they are about to meet about. After a good day's work, the tea the hero is drinking tastes more satisfying than ever. The chief is in anticipation of Rust's words. Seeing that he is making the old man nervous, our hero makes the atmosphere less tense. He reminds the chief that since they now have plenty of crystals, it means that they won't need new ones for years, if not decades. He tells the old man that he is not satisfied yet, since there are still a lot of villages that need the old-style crystals, especially in the remote regions. The chief agrees with this, making it easier for Rust to tell him what he wants to say. With a serious face, the young master alchemist tells him about discussing the possibility of doing business with the new dominion of the night called Kalen about the old-style magic crystals. Calling up in Kalen gets the chief's full attention, as he remembers her reputation as a powerful swordsman who can defeat 3 armored men with but a swing of a sword despite her small arms. He gets to talking more about Kalen's reputation and how he is about to reveal her infamous nickname, only for Rust to stop him with a wave of his hand before he can. As the boy tells him that he is Kalen's friend who is about to go to her dominion, he thinks about the girl's inelegant nickname and how it dehumanizes her. As the topic is quite sensitive, Rust encourages the old man to tell the feudal lord of the land of their conversation in secret. As making a new domain is costly, the young master alchemist envisions a business partnership of old-style magic crystal production between Kalen and the villages that will be fruitful for all parties. With everything going on now, the boy is confident that Kalen and the feudal lord will work out a good deal, while Toma village and the chief are happy with their crystals now. After thinking it over, the old man agrees with the young master alchemist's request. The boy wants to send a letter to someone he knows from the academy and who should still be in the army. A letter he deems will lay the groundwork for his plans. From what Rust knows about Rehaltsam, he will be sticking his nose into what is about to come. However, he is more concerned about what the army will do once they figure out that their production of new-style magic crystals is about to be hit by a huge road bump. With the boy done with his letter, he rolls the paper up. Hot wax is placed on it, and he uses his alchemist medallion to seal it. With his business in the village ending, the boy wants to see if it is time to leave. The chief offers for him to stay the night, but he politely declines. Seeing that the master alchemist is about to leave, people everywhere are regretting that he will not stay long to help them with more of their little problems. The village is full of happy faces and waving hands, as the people all wish him well. As the boy travels with Hippo, he gets ready, knowing that these parts of the wilderness are filled with monsters. Suddenly, a long ton-like creature charges at the boy and his hippo. As a giant, Hippo makes a crushing stomp that stops the slithering thing in its tracks. Ever the kind master, he thanks his cute pet for doing a good job. He investigates the flattened creature over the massive footprint. The boy wears harvesting gloves and pulls a waterproof bag to collect the specimen. May it serve as a material for something useful. From what he knows, there are a lot of monsters in the region due to regular animals being unable to compete with them. This thinking puts a smirk on the young master alchemist, who is ready for some fun research. He pulls out a map that lets him know he is near a body of water, signaling that it will only be a short while until he reaches Kalen's place. After a while, he had already reached the pond. He gets down from Hippo to see if there are different monsters near the water. Hippo makes a noise to warn the boy. Upon further inspection of the water, the boy sees that there are traces of magic elements. Suddenly, something comes out, splashing Rust with water on his face. He is surprised to see that what came out is a little lizard. Looking at the harmless-looking white lizard, Rust comments about its rare color. Suddenly, another tongue or tentacle-like creature appears from the pond, almost hitting the young master alchemist. It turns out that it had its slithers on the little lizard all along and grabbed its tail to pull it. The boy meets the innocent and sympathetic eyes of the lizard. He thinks rationally, contemplating that while the creature might look like a child, that does not mean it is one, and what is only known for sure is that it is clearly a monster. Despite knowing that its innocent look might just be a defense mechanism to trick other creatures, the boy cannot stay calm and collected as he looks into its eyes. Unable to help himself but feeling sorry for the little thing, he summons Hippo to help it. The giant pet jumps into the air, casting a giant shadow over the slithering enemy. As the beast lands, it makes a crushing stamp that breaks the tentacle in two, thus releasing the lizard. With the enemy monster retreating back to the water, Rust gets near the lizard and sees that it is too weak right now to move. He also picks up the remains of the tentacle in case it can be used as material. He puts a levitating magic scroll over the lizard to see if he can analyze it. Since the creature is not human, it is hard for Rust to make a proper reading, but he also theorizes that something must be blocking him from making a good reading. From what he can read, he sees that the lizard is suffering from extreme fatigue. He theorizes that it must have something to do with its mitochondria not working at full capacity. While he thinks of ways to properly treat the lizard, Hippo is in the water, still battling the tentacle monster. Unable to fully understand the lizard's condition, the boy makes only a simple potion. With the time he gets from making it, Hippo has already fetched the unconscious main body of the tentacled enemy for its master to look at. Rust applies the potion to the lizard, but it is still not waking up, despite its mitochondrial activity already improving. As the boy explores his options, he sees that Hippo is showing sympathy and care for the little lizard, something he does not see the beast do very often towards potentially dangerous creatures. He wonders if this means that the lizard is not just any regular monster. In any case, the boy cannot leave the little animal behind, knowing full well of the high chance it will get caught by monsters who are attracted to a body of water. He takes the lizard with him on his travels. Rust follows the river connected to the pond as he holds a map in his hand. It does not take long until he sees Kalen's camp in his view. Hippo then becomes alert and stops, which the boy notices. The boy gets down from his pet and onto the sandy ground. He shows his medallion and officially introduces himself as the master-ranked alchemist the knight Kalen has been waiting for. Suddenly the sand in front of them rises, and from the ashes are two identical-looking women with marked talismans hiding their faces. The woman addresses him formally with the title Master while apologizing for their reception since they are weary of monsters that can mimic humans convincingly. The Master Alchemist realizes that Hippo stopped moving before they were within reach of the two women's attack range. Rust tells them that there are no apologies needed and that he is more impressed by how well they hid themselves. All the while, the sisters do not see themselves as impressive since the Master Alchemist easily notices them. At first glance at the Master Alchemist, the sisters can see how their Lady Kalen sees him in such high regard. Rust puts his attention on the marked talismans they have on their heads, and he wonders what the story behind them is. The woman observes and notices that there is a monster on Hippo. The two then fight among themselves, with one arguing not to antagonize Master Rust since they know they cannot defeat him or his beast. The older sister, Ari, apologizes for the younger Rose's behavior. All our hero can think of is how he avoided such a pointless fight after just arriving. He wonders if the sisters have some sort of vision-related ability. He deduces that the younger of the two might have the ability to see far away, while the elder one might be able to assess people's strengths. Knowing how the little lizard raised alarm bells, the boy swears on his medallion, saying that he will take responsibility for the little creature. The sisters agree, and they take the young master to their lady Kaylin. After a while, they arrive at a tent. Inside is a massive communication center, where people are busy doing various things. A shadow then calls Rust's name. It is Kaylin, who is excited to see that her friend has arrived. Their handshake is so genuine that there are sparks of electricity. Defying the expectations of her reputation, Knight Kaylin is actually a short person. She asks the boy how his trip went, and as if expecting something, she asks if he had any trouble with the two sisters she sent out to welcome him. This confuses Rust, who did not realize the two were sent intentionally for him. He realizes that Kaylin made it so that the sisters were the ones to welcome him, since she knows they would be the ones who might cause problems for the boy most in their outpost. Rust contemplates how Kaylin has always been one to intentionally create conflicts from the start to lay the foundation for a relationship. In an awkward way, Rust tells Kaylin that he has no problem dealing with the two who welcomed him, an answer the girl boss is satisfied with. She wants to talk alone with her old friend, so she asks everyone in the room to get out and take a break. Only Kaylin, Rusty, and the two sisters remain in the tent. Seeing that they need a table for their talk, the lady boss lifts up something with a grip so strong that cracks appear. Kaylin is actually lifting heavy equipment with one hand and little effort despite her petite body, something that Rusty sees as something that never changes. With the area clear, the knight is satisfied, and she sends the sisters to bring her and her guests some tea. With the knight sending everyone away, Rust assumes they are about to talk about trouble happening around the outpost, something the lady confirms. The master alchemist playfully comments that he thought he came to her under the impression he was going to get an easy and laid-back job. When Kaylin informs him of that possibility, she tells him she did not just summon him for anything ordinary. As a term of endearment, she calls Rust by the nickname Academy Genius. The boy asks him to stop with that name and wants to go straight to the point. The lady then changes her atmosphere to a tense one. She wants the newly arrived master alchemist to investigate the disease spreading within the camp and learn of its origin. After the meeting, Rust steps outside, and as he walks the camp, he thinks about the endemic disease he is assigned to investigate. As he tries to think about it more, he notices that people around the area have eyes that are staring daggers at him. He tries to wave at them with a smile, but they do not stop their intense gaze, so the boy also wants to earn the people's trust aside from his mission. The two sisters bring the master alchemist to his tent. After seeing how distrustful the people are of him, he is glad that he came across the two sisters first after all. He instantly takes it back, as the sisters blatantly tell him that they do not trust him, and that they will not forgive him if he falls under Lady Kaylin's huge expectations of him. The boy then inspects his tent and sees how huge it is, comparing it to how Kaylin must value and expect things from him. Looking at it from a view, the master alchemist's tent is even bigger than the neighboring ones, as if it were a message to everyone of his importance. He looks inside and sees that there is no furniture or any accommodations ready, as he expects from his old friend. He pulls out a scroll to get ready for the patients Ari and Ro are about to let enter. With his magic, he summons a carpet that has been purified for protection against water and dirt. He lets the little lizard rest on a little piece of cloth he readies. He then picks one scroll, in particular, out of his bag and activates the magic, summoning the transmuted beast, Rose. While it looks like the flower of its namesake, it is actually a transmuted beast, just like Kipo, and the boy asks it to make a sturdy bed for the lizard. Magically, the beast summons vines out of itself, building a beautiful nest for the little animal. Rust thanks it and asks it to build him the standard equipment for a tent next. Rose builds a bed, a desk, and many more things that the boy needs. The boy says that Rose is a transmuted beast he created when he was still a student at the academy. The beast was particularly useful on fieldwork investigations where he went away for a long time. Rose was so effective that a fond memory of his was that other students, Kaylin first of all, always used to hang out in his tent. One of the sisters comes in to inform him that they have brought a patient. The boy is ready and tells her the patient can come in. The patient begins telling him about his symptoms and how he is always tired and lethargic. Hearing him out, Rust realizes he can diagnose and treat the symptoms of all the patients in just a day. As he treats the people, he hopes that it will lead him to find the cause of the disease. As he takes in more to treat, he starts to collect data and realizes that the diseases must be more trouble than he initially thought. After repeatedly seeing patients, the day had already turned into night. Ro is surprised that the good alchemist is so quick at his job that he is already at his last patient. The boy listens to the last patient and makes a potion for him. As he magically makes the potion, He contemplates how all he is doing is treating the symptoms for now. As he finalizes the last patient's potion, he thinks about how he needs to try to determine the cause of the disease and really fix things. After drinking the potion, the patient is surprised that the numbness in his hand is instantly gone. The young patient thanks the master alchemist with joy as he calls him a doctor. Rust is glad to hear how happy the patient is, seeing as he has never experienced this kind of gratitude for his potions back in the association. Now that there are no more patients, the boy thanks Ro for the day, to which she says it is only her job. He gives the woman a potion and says it is for fatigue, an act of kindness Ro did not expect. The boy says he made the potion while in between seeing patients, so the woman thanks him for the gesture. As she runs off, Rust still thinks breaking the ice with the people in the camp won't be easy for him. Now that he is alone, he prepares to finish his information gathering for the day. He opens his scrolls to write a report to Karin while looking at the notes he gathered from the patient's histories. The young alchemist walks outside, ready for the opportunity to talk about magic crystals. People who see him go outside greet him with a smile, in contrast to how they treated him with an intense gaze when he first arrived. It is clear why, as they thank him for treating all of them within the day. As the young master alchemist passes by, they wave back to him. He goes to Kalen's tent, telling the guard he wants to get in to report his findings, so the guard lets him in. The night lady greets him inside, and even she is surprised that it only took the master alchemist half a day to treat the entire camp. As he looks at Rust's report, she has a relaxed mood and compliments how talented the boy is, only for her tune to change to a serious one as she looks further at his written words. She looks at her old friend and thanks him for saving her people. The boy kneels at her, knowing that Kalen's few words are loaded with sincere gratitude. Suddenly, Rust's stomach growls, making the night lady laugh and conscious that the alchemist has yet to eat anything heavy throughout the day. Their discussion about food makes Kalen laugh hard after realizing that her old friend is still eating the grass bricks he used to eat when they were still classmates. While the two wait for food, the lady wants the boy to tell her more about his report. The next morning, Rust is doing his early routine and sees that the lizard is still asleep. He goes outside and sees that the two sisters are waiting for him. The boy asks how long they have been waiting and how they are feeling. The sisters tell him that they feel rested, all thanks to the potion he gave, and they comment about how effective it is in making fatigue vanish, something that the boy is glad to hear. Lady Kalen asks the two to show him around the camp, and so the sisters ask him where he wants to go. After thinking about it, Rust asks that they take him to the place where the food is being stored. To make things easier, the boy summons Hippo, making the sisters excited that they will ride it. They arrive at the food storehouse, a cave-like semi-basement closed up by a huge gate. The master alchemist deduces that it probably used to be a monster's nest that got reworked into a food storehouse. The boy asks Hippo to tell him if he finds anything while he finds the right scroll in his bag. He tosses the scroll into the air, materializing the mystical pendulum dowling he lets hang under his hand. Rust explains that the dowsing pendulum is a tool for measuring magic elements and that the wider it swings under his hand, the more magic elements there are. He walks around outside the food storehouse and sees how the pendulum reacts. In one area, he kneels down and the swings become wild, signaling to the boy that the magic is so concentrated in the ground that it sterilizes any germ that comes near. He looks at Kipo, trying to find anything on the ground, and sees that Roa is also on the floor helping out too. The boy then goes on to follow the swing of his pendulum and sees from his scroll that the magic is highly concentrated wherever he goes in the area. Although he sees nothing out of the ordinary, he ponders that food is usually stored in the basement due to how dark and cold it is, and also because it is usually where magic is highly concentrated, helping with the germs. Due to this method of preservation, it is hard for the boy to think that people can get sick from what they eat. However, it crosses his mind that the disease might have come from the monster that used to be living in the nest before. He asks Roa what kind of monster used to live here, and she answers that it was a bear. He asks for more information, but he is cut short as someone arrives. Roa says the man who arrived is the one in charge of managing the food supply. The food manager is happy to see the master alchemist and thanks him for treating his younger brother, the patient, with a numb hand. The man shakes his hand firmly and tells him he will be of help. However, the alchemist wants him, to which the boy thanks him for it. The boy asks to look around inside the storehouse, and the manager complies. Inside, Rust uses his pendulum and follows where the swings will lead him. He thinks about his findings and sees that every food being stored is in good condition, and there are no poisonous residues to find that he no longer needs to be inside. Going out of the basement, the boy asks Hippo if he found anything, but even the beast finds nothing. The sisters ask if they can assume that the disease did not start in the storage, and the boy replies that he is not 100% sure, but for now, they need to keep going with the search. The master alchemist wants to look elsewhere for the purifying water jug, which stores water for drinking and cooking at the camp. Looking at it, Rust sees an old magic item with purification features that still works properly, and he cannot see it as a problem. Due to the numbness the disease caused, the boy covered both the supply of food and water, but he still could not find any answers. As the master alchemist is busy in thought, one of the sisters suggests to him that they should have lunch. Rust is surprised, as the woman is too close to his face as she tells him this. While it scares the boy, the woman informs him that she did it because he does not seem to listen when he is too focused on something. As they walk, the boy still thinks that the way she asked him to stop for lunch was not natural. He asks the sisters if Kaylin asks them to make sure he eats. While the two do not answer, it is obvious to Rust that she did. He remembers the old days when Kaylin used to shove food in his mouth whenever he was busy doing research. The three, with Hippo, head to the camp's cafeteria. The sisters show the boy how the cafeteria works. Seeing that Hippo also wants to eat, Rust transmutes finely grounded magic stones into a bowl of grass pellets. He enjoys it as he sees his pet wolf down the bowl. The sisters are now back with the food. The boy looks at the bounties in front of him and sees that it is a simple menu, and that he can tell the cook still tries to improve the flavor with very little he has to work with. He asks the sisters if everyone eats here, and they say that people with families usually eat together at their homes instead. The boy looks around, and it reminds him of the cafeteria back at the academy. He pulls out a scroll and reviews his findings. He then notices the two sisters are staring at him as if they want to say something. He asks them if they have noticed anything in common among the patients and the new cases today. The sister hears him but advises the alchemist to stop working while they have time to eat. Despite this, Ari reports that she has not heard of any new cases today. Rao is thinking about his question, and she answers that she noticed that the patients are usually single. Hearing this, Ari notices it too, and tells the boy that she can usually find them at the tent of single folks. Russ thinks this over and asks if a lot of single people eat in the cafeteria. After Ari says this is correct, the master alchemist summons a scroll, displaying his version of the computer interface. With a smile, the genius alchemist says he has found the answer. He then tells the sisters to stop eating since there is a trace amount of poison in the food that affects the nervous system and matches the symptoms. Hearing this, the two sisters shout at the others to also stop eating, warning them of the chance of poison. Meanwhile, Rust is busy searching through the scroll and has now found what he is looking for. Then he shows a hint of doubt that makes the sisters ask what is happening. After reviewing everything he has learned, the master, Rust, announces that he has it more or less figured out, shocking the sisters. As the woman responsible for the kitchen shows up, Rust announces that he has figured out the answer to how the disease has spread. As the cook asks if there is a problem with the food, the boy introduces himself to her as an alchemist assigned by Lady Kaylin to investigate the disease spreading around the camp. He asks if he can examine the kitchen. Arriving at the kitchen, the boy confirms that the reading from his scroll is as he expected. He asks Roa to tell Kaylin to arrange a meeting in an hour. An hour later, Rust, Kaylin, the two sisters, the person responsible for the kitchen, and the person responsible for the singles tent are gathered together. The lady boss starts by telling the boy she has heard he has solved the epidemic. The master alchemist explains the origin of it first, saying that it started with the lake upstream from the river close to the camp, and how the poison from the monster that lived there affects the nervous system. The night boss confirms that they do use water from the river, but that it should not be a problem since the jug they use to store water should be purifying the poison out of it. Rust agrees that the jug is indeed purifying the water. However, the problem is the water for domestic use, like the water for washing clothes and tableware. The same unpurified water taken directly from the river is being used to wash tableware and clothes. This shocks both the person responsible for the singles tent and the person responsible for the kitchen. The young master alchemist then continues to say that he investigated the tent for the singles and found trace amounts of poison from the monster tableware and clothing that had been washed. This small amount of poison enters the body through skin contact and through the mouth, explaining why many of the patients are from the tent of the singles. Hearing this, the person responsible for the kitchen and the one from the singles tent feel deep shame and want to take responsibility for what happened. Lady Kaylin stops them from speaking and tells them that she was the one who decided to split the water since the purified water needed to be rationed, and so she absolves the two of blame. She raises her hand like a leader and tells them that their task now is to defeat the monster living upstream to end the source of the poison. Rust then reveals the already defeated monster in his hand, since it was the same creature that was attacking the white lizard. The others are all shocked by this. However, the humble young alchemist only scratches his head as he tells them that it only somehow happened that way. He looks at his scroll and sees no contradictions in his findings. Kalen reviews all of the young master alchemist's impressive achievements doing the mission, finishing the patient's treatment within 1 day, finding the origins of the disease the next day, and even taking down the monster that caused everything. Rust advises them that since the monster has only recently been taken down, they should not use the water from the river without purification for a while, and that they should dispose of the water used for cleaning so far. He continues by saying that it is only a few days later that they can use the water without purifying it. The formal alchemist takes a bow, telling the girl boss that he has completed the task of treating the patients and removing the burden of the disease. Kalen smiles at this and declares her thanks to him for his remarkable work regarding the issue that has even exceeded his wildest expectations. That being said, Rust tells everyone that since the disease was accumulated in small quantities, it is possible that people will still turn up sick. He tells his old friend that he will continue to treat the people according to their conditions, and that he asks that they come to him if they feel something is wrong, to which Kalen agrees. Since he is already in a role, the boy plays his hand by asking if she has plans to expand the jug with the purification features and tells her he can do it if he is given the budget for it. Instantly, the night boss grants him his request, finally closing the curtains on the young master alchemist's first mission in the camp. For now, the young alchemist wants to enjoy his life in the borderland, even though he is not actually that optimistic. He ominously narrates that at this time, he has no way of knowing what kind of trouble is happening back at the Alchemist Association. Ari attaches her talisman to her face as she starts the day. As a narrator, she introduces herself again by name and tells off her role as Lady Kalen's servant under the Admiral domain. Outside, in the street of Pros Lane, waits her sister Roa, and she asks her what she thinks of Master Rust. Meanwhile, Ari says that their mission today is to procure a water jug for the young alchemist. Back to the question, Ari answers that he sees the boy as not like the others. From the time she met Rust, she already felt his incredible fighting power, which dwarfs even the sisters combined. As the sisters walk the street, she says that she and Roa are the strongest among Lady Kalen's people, and she thinks this means her younger sister has mixed feelings for the alchemist because of it. A feeling of equal parts admiration, power, and jealousy. Roa has a lot of pride in the intense training they have done, but also an interest in alchemy, which is a different type of power. Ari ponders admonishing her sister for her attitude, but she cannot do it since deep down she feels the same way. As they reach the magic item store, she talks about bottling up this feeling. After finishing business in the store, they head to the next one Rust told them about. As they walk, the sisters realize that the air feels tense in the street they are now on compared to Porcelain Street. Instead of absorbing it, they went on to go to the store. They enter, and they are met by the youthful-looking owner Rust has told them about. Inspecting the store, Ari sees that there are more empty shelves than magical items. The sisters discuss that they have something they want to sell, to which the owner asks who sent them. Ari sees that the owner is looking at them like she is sizing them up, and she thinks it might be because they don't look like alchemists. She hands over a sealed scroll that the owner opens up. The owner is surprised to see Master Rust's seal on it. The sisters say that he instructed them to sell in the store, to which the owner happily obliges, given how high-quality Rust potions usually are. However, she is also hesitant since the message states that Rust wants to sell at a regular price. She explains that now that the Alchemist Association's supply of products has mysteriously fallen behind, all items related to alchemy have shot up in price. She continues to say that Rust potion can be sold for many times the regular price. Despite this knowledge, Ari insists that the regular price will do, which the owner understands. The sisters walk outside and find that, despite the regular price, their bag of coins still weighs a lot. Since the master told them they could use some of it for their travel expenses, they have the idea of eating somewhere nice. As they eat, Roa, in particular, is enjoying the meal. Meanwhile, Ari is thinking about how their errand started. A few days ago, their Lady Kalen had healers look at the spreading disease in the camp, but none stuck around out of fear of catching the disease themselves. Suddenly, Master Rust falls into their camp like a miracle. She recalls their task of bringing the patients to Rust, with most of them unable to walk properly due to illness. She recalls the patient's health instantly improving the moment they exited the master's tent. Aside from that, she recalls how the alchemist also discovered the cause of the disease and slew the monster causing it. She sees Rust as someone special above all other alchemists. Ari tells her sister that they might be able to tell the master about their eyes, making Roa stop eating. As the two sisters face each other, they both know they are in silent agreement. Rihaldsem looks particularly irked today, more so than usual. He looks on in disbelief at the Alchemist Association's equipment vault storage. It's covered in disgusting, stinky, and slimy material, and he's been tasked with cleaning everything up. He complains, blaming Rust for quitting all of a sudden, and saying that he wasn't devoted to the association. For some reason, there was a lot of trouble within the association at this time, and most master alchemists had to leave to deal with it. Most of the items in the vault were dangerous and needed to be handled with care. Some monster materials would even explode if they weren't maintained well. There used to be an administrator that managed the place, but he was fired due to budget cuts, and the basic research department took over. But that department disbanded, so the dangerous materials were neglected and problems materialized, particularly in the form of a scavenger slime's explosion into think fluid. He raises his fist in anger. Because of the Class 1 hazardous materials, entry into the storage is prohibited, with the exception of master rank alchemists. If it weren't for that rule, he'd have sent an underling instead. Just then, a voice repeatedly calls out to him, alerting him of trouble. He says he's busy, but the younger man, Tortake, insists that the vice president of the Arms Association was screaming and demanding that someone summon Master Rehaltsam. Not expecting his superior to be seeking him, he scolds him for not saying it sooner and orders him to tell someone of master rank to finish cleaning the vault up. The apprentice tries to argue, but to no avail. The snobby man is already making his way to the vice president, irritated that he has to show himself in such a disgusting state. The young alchemist complains as he can't possibly tell a master to clean up the mess. On top of that, no one knows when they'll come back. For now, he needs to close the door to the vault before the magic elements in the atmosphere enter. He reaches out, but the restriction sternly blocks his hand. Unable to go in without a master rank medallion, he decides to go to the association's entrance and wait for a master alchemist to return from their journey. The naive young man leaves, unaware that he just left the magic elements in the air, completely free to enter the association's vault.